Sadly, Clark's story is becoming increasingly common. The Flying Bats Football Club in northwest Sydney, Australia, has on its team 5 males who identify as transgender. The team was awarded a $1,000 prize after winning the Northwest Sydney League preseason Beryl Ackroyd Cup on March 24th, following a season of winning every game they played in the Women's Premier League matches, 10 games to none. Of the 5 men on the women's football team is trans activist Riley Dennis, who was previously accused of severely injuring women while participating on another women's team. However, the problems created by the male players on the Flying Bats team aren't limited to safety risks and fair sport for women. Female players have been self-excluding from the sport by the dozens in order to avoid competing against the trans-identified men. Frank Parisi, president of St. Patrick's Football Club, addressed the governing body for the teams.
Frank Parisi, president of St. Pat's. A couple of years ago, one of the Flying Bats players broke one of our players' legs in a game, and it was in the lower division, so we're not talking about the leagues, so they were really tall, clumsy tackle. They got tackled from behind. Our player had their leg broken in 2 places. She's no longer playing football. Didn't get a red card, didn't get a red card. We've been there since 2000, and I've lost 2 women's teams as a direct result of them not wanting to play against Bats players. I'd like to get your comments about that, because as a small club, I've lost 24 players. Okay? And that's as a direct result, and they've all said to me, Frank, we do not want to play against the Bats players.
This is becoming distressingly common. Not just men being allowed to compete against women, but injuries to women as a result. Many people who are not athletes simply do not understand how much stronger men are than women. I don't mean this in any derogatory way, but the average person, man or woman, may never have lifted anything heavier than a suitcase. And as both men and women can usually wrangle a heavy suitcase, they simply have no frame of reference in which to understand the extreme difference in strength between the sexes. And nowhere is this difference demonstrated more impactfully than in weightlifting. If you haven't already, I urge you to watch my recent interview with Canadian powerlifter April Hutchinson. April holds the North American record for female deadlift at an awe-inspiring 497 pounds. She's also been suspended by the Canadian Powerlifters Union for speaking out against men being allowed to compete against women in Canadian powerlifting, something that is against the International Powerlifting Federation's rules, by the way, and the CPU has been sent a cease and desist letter by the IPA. I know it's obvious to most of you that I myself lift weights, and I have ever since I was young, but I am not a powerlifter, nor have I ever been a competitive lifter of any kind. April is a world-class powerlifter. She also tops me by an inch, outweighs me by 25 pounds, and is 15 years younger than I am. Despite all of that, April and I demonstrated in that interview that if I lost my mind tomorrow and decided I identify as a woman, the Canadian Powerlifters Union would allow me to compete against April, and I would win. So how much more unfair is it that athletes like April are being made to compete against biological men who are powerlifters, who are the same age and size as women like April, such as the man who calls himself Anne Andres? He couldn't compete against men, so he got the CPU to let him compete against women. Please keep that in mind for this connected and extremely disturbing story. I doubt I need to tell you where this could lead. Biological male Windsor, Ontario police officer Jane Roller, who identifies as female, is reportedly allowed to strip search female suspects and use women's change rooms. Normally, only female cops conduct strip searches of other females, while male cops search males. Roller, who is 6'5" tall and 250 pounds, allegedly has breast implants but has not had bottom surgery. He reportedly is still straight, attracted to women. He frequently uses the bathroom, changes, and showers in the women's room. Employment and Labor Relations Director and Legal Counsel for Windsor Police Service, Bryce Chandler, threatened police officers with criminal charges should they speak out about Roller. Windsor Police Anonymous sources said that at least 90% of officers, both male and female, object to Roller's special accommodations, and the other 10% are afraid to say anything. Notice that Roller has reportedly received breast implants. I couldn't find any proof of this. Remember the fake breasts of Busty Lemieux? So the Windsor police clearly believe it's okay for a 250-pound, self-confessed straight man to not be required to prove that he's actually transgender, and force women who are undoubtedly smaller and weaker than he is to submit to a strip search at his hands that amounts to sexual abuse and harassment.